Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to review the latest non-fiction book I looked at, How the Great Religions Began by Joseph Gaer. I believe it's pronounced Gaer, it's G-A-E-R. When this book was originally released in 1929, I'm sure that it was considered enlightened. And when it was re-released in 1956, I would imagine it was still one of the first opportunities that many Westerners had to be exposed to religions that were other than the Abrahamic traditions. But viewed through the lens of 2010, the words that I can best use to describe this book are condescending, insulting, and demeaning. Because that pretty much sums up what this book made me think of. Pretty much from the first paragraph I read until the last paragraph I read, which wasn't the last paragraph of the book. Now, if you look at the cover here, you'll note here there are three symbols. Cross, Star of David, Crescent and Star of Islam. And you'll note that all of them are the Abrahamic traditions, all of them are monotheistic, they're all worshiping the same God. The author here made the assumption that the person reading this book was going to be a Christian and a monotheist. And the main slant of this book, the message that I took away from it was monotheism good, pantheism or polytheism bad. Now I'm going to start out and look at some of the actual individual religions that he dealt with. Now the first three religions he deals with here are really Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Hinduism, or Hindustan. Now, why he didn't cover the Hindu faith first, I don't know. Because he takes the other three faiths I just mentioned and puts them into the role of reformations of Hindu. That they are reformed movements of the Hindu faith. That they are there to replace the Hindu faith with something better. And it is an unabashed comment on his part that what is being discussed, Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, is better than the Hindu system. Because at the bottom of his rung of evolutionary religious ladder, we have nature worship. So if you worship nature in any way, shape, or form, then as far as Mr. Gaer is concerned, you are at the bottom rung. Above that is idol worship, which is where the pantheists and the polytheists would fall into the category of. And then he starts working his way up, starting with Buddhism. Now, I freely admit I am not a Buddhist scholar, but the Buddhist tradition history he gives here, to me, sounds different than the ones I have been exposed to in the past. Maybe it's because he's an outsider looking in, and he was also not a scholar. I'm not sure. To my mind, the Sikhism is not a turning away from Hindu so much as a revelation of one man and his mission to preserve his people in the face of having to confront a militant branch of Islam. But that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Then he deals with Confucianism. Now he takes Confucius's work on education and his philosophy that contained therein, and he casts it as a faith. I have never heard anyone consider Confucius to be a faith before. I was just like, where did this man get this idea? Because it made no sense to me. Then he deals in Taoism, and the Taoist section is okay, but he seems to think that Lao Tzu was talking about God. Taoism has nothing to do with any deity. Taoism has to do with understanding or coming to grips with the true unknown, the Tao itself. If you can explain the Tao, you don't understand it. And if you understand the Tao, you cannot explain it. It is the classic Zen koan. What is the sound of one hand clapping? That kind of thing. It's a mystery concept. I've researched it fairly extensively, as best a layperson can. It fascinates me. It was philosophy that I was really fond of when I was younger, but it ultimately really wasn't my thing. But this guy knows a whole heck of a lot less about it than I do, and I didn't write a book. Then he discusses Shinto, and according to him, the Chinese gave everything to the Japanese. That prior to the Chinese introducing the Japanese to civilization, they were essentially one step above cavemen living on their island, hunting with bows and spears and fishing, and having no culture whatsoever. He actually says that the Chinese taught the Japanese how to think. The level of arrogance and hubris involved in this man's thought process is astounding. Then he gets into chapter 3, which is, he deals with Zoroastrianism, which is the religion based around Zoroaster. And I fought my way through that one, and then I couldn't go any further. Because he starts to talking about the advanced religions. He kind of gives them, Zoroaster, a handwave because he was important in the Abrahamic traditions as far as certain ideas and concepts that were laid down and that were adopted by the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims of the later date. But I just couldn't get any further in this book. I was just dumbfounded by the level of arrogance involved, the level of misinformation. He's talking about Buddhism, rather Bushido, the code of the samurai, which he calls knights. It completely gets the word translated wrong. It's not the way of the knight, it's the way of the horse and bow, or the bow and horse. It's not hard to look that up, folks. Even in 1929, it wasn't hard to look that up. The actual lack of any kind of research was just dumbfounding. This guy could have solved so many questions and gotten them right by just a trip to any decent library, even in 1929. I don't know what to do with this book. I don't want to donate it or give it to anybody because it's a piece of crap. I don't want to throw it away because it's a book, and my love of books is so great I can't bring myself just to throw it away. I'm at a loss what to do with this book. So you're asking yourself, why am I talking about it? Because life is too short to read bad books. And I'm trying to save you, the listener, from reading this book. Don't do it, folks. It's horrible. Move on with something else. There are better books in the world to read. I've reviewed lots of them. I shall hopefully be reviewing lots more in the future. Right now I'm reading a book that deals with what would happen if the Earth didn't have a moon. It's fascinating. But avoid this guy. I don't know if he ever wrote anything else, but if he did, I'm not going to recommend that either because it can't be good.